Good morning. Today we are going to continue the concept of free consent. Okay, we have seen section 14 telling about what is free consent. Then in the previous lecture we have seen section 15 discussing about coercion and voidability. Okay, now we'll here first discuss void and voidability. What we had seen, minus contract is altogether void. A person who makes a contract, if he is unsound mind, then also the contract is void. A person who is disqualified, if he enters into contract, that agreement is void. It means it is not having no value in the eyes of law. It is void, it means it is useless in law, having no value in law. That is called as void, null and void. Okay, now here we are discussing other concept called as voidable. Voidable means when the option is there upon a person to make that contract either valid or either void. Therefore, when a contract is being affected by coercion, undue influence, fraud, misrepresentation, that contract becomes voidable. It is a position that where the person is having an option. He can decide. He may take an objection on this. If he takes the objection, he can get it declared void. If he keeps quiet, if he does not want to do anything on it, then the contract is valid. As in the previous lecture we have seen about coercion. When a contract is affected by coercion, there is an option upon a person that he can declare it void or voidable. Void or valid, you can say. When an option is there, then it is called as a voidable contract. Okay, now today we are going to see the second vitiating element in free consent, that is undue influence, which has been defined in section 16. Okay, what section 16 is telling? A contract is said to be induced by undue influence where the relations subsisting between the parties are such that one of the parties is in a position to dominate the will of the other and uses that position to obtain unfair advantage over the other. This is called as undue influence. Means when two persons are there in which one person is having a dominating position, he is dominating the will of the other, and by that domination what he is doing, he is influencing him and taking unfair advantage. As he is taking unfair advantage, this is called as undue influence. A contract can be called as made in undue influence when the relation between the two persons is such that one of the parties is in a position to dominate the will of the other and uses that position to obtain unfair advantage over the other. That is undue influence. And when undue influence is there, such a contract again is voidable. This is the effect, this is the consequences of undue influence or coercion. Also it becomes voidable. The person is having the option that he can declare it valid or he can declare it void. Means, take an example, one orphan is there, the poor boy, he is been brought up by his aunt. When from his childhood he has seen that his aunt has helped him, his aunt has has helped him in education, everything is been done by his aunt and all. Then what will happen? He is going to have an influence of the aunt. The aunt will be having dominant position upon him because he knows that everything whatever he is today, it is because of his aunt. So if this aunt of his is putting influence on him and taking some unfair advantage, in that position he will not be able to say no for certain transaction. In his own mind he can consider that his aunt is taking unfair advantage, but he can't say no to the aunt because he knows that what she has done from his own childhood. Okay, though she has done everything, it does not mean that she should take undue or unfair advantage. She shouldn't have taken that, but she is taking. In such a case, the person, the boy, can object the transaction. He can declare it void. Means sometimes she is asking for some property and all. He can't say no. Therefore, he purchases the property in the name of the aunt, but afterwards he can get it cancelled. Okay. Now, this has been mentioned in section 16 that the relation between the two persons is such that one is dominating the will of the other and takes unfair advantage. Now, this is subsection 1 of section 16. Now, what is subsection 2? In particular and without prejudice to the generality of foregoing principle, a person is deemed to be in a dominant position to dominate the will of the another if, and they have mentioned some things, some rules like who can dominate. Subsection 2 is telling us who can dominate. When a person is having a real or apparent authority over the other, he can dominate. Where he stands in a fiduciary relationship with the other, he can dominate. Where he makes a contract with a person whose mental capacity is being temporarily or permanently affected because of age, because of illness, because of mental or bodily distress, then this person can dominate. Example, parents can dominate the children because the child can't say no to the parents. In many of the cases, he knows what their parents have done for him, so he can't say no. So here the parent should not have undue influence. But if some parent, some father or mother, they put undue influence, they take unfair advantage from the child can cancel the transaction. Okay. Now these are the three things which is been mentioned in subsection 2. Who can dominate? A person who holds a real or apparent authority. Second, where he stands in a fiduciary relation. Third, where he makes a contract with a person whose mental capacity has been deprived temporarily because he can't say no. He knows that he should not have said yes, but he says yes because he can't say no. This is his position. Okay. Now, this will be called as undue influence. Now, the effect of undue influence is what? That contract is voidable. Now, there are like law presumes that in some relationship there is undue influence. In what relationship undue influence is there? Parent and children, guardians and wards, trustees and beneficiaries. There is undue influence because one will be in a position to dominate the other. In the other case, you consider a relationship between landlord and tenant, a creditor or a debtor. There may not be undue influence. Law does not presume it. There may be, but law does not presume. This is the main difference here. I'll repeat. There are certain relationships where law presumes that undue influence can be there. In parents and children, guardians and ward, law presumes, fiancé and fiancée, law presumes that there can be undue influence. But there are certain relationships where the law does not presume, but you can prove it that there were some undue influence there. Okay, but presumption will not be there. Landlord, tenant, creditor, debtor, husband, wife. These are the relationships where law does not presume that undue influence is there. This has been explained in subsection 2. Now, the third subsection states that where a person who is in a position to dominate the will of another enters into a contract with him and the transaction appears on the face of it or on the evidence being produced, the burden of proving that such contract was not induced by undue influence shall lie upon the person in a position to dominate the will of the other. Means the burden of proof is on the other person was in a position to dominate his will. Other party actually uses influence to obtain the plaintiff's consent and the transaction is unreasonable. Means here the burden of proof lies upon that concerned person. He has to prove that the contract was not induced by undue influence. Means if we both enter into a contract, example, I am having an influence upon you, undue influence upon you, I have taken unfair advantage, then it is my duty, my burden to prove that this contract is not been induced by undue influence. Shall lie upon the person in a position to dominate the will of the other. Means I have to prove that in this transaction there is no undue influence. I have not taken any unfair advantage. The transaction is what? Reasonable. Means if you prove that the transaction is unreasonable, and if the law sees here that I am in a dominating position, then the law is going to presume that undue influence is there. Okay. So these are the three subsections which I mentioned in section 16 telling about undue influence. Okay. Bye bye. See you in the next video.